Steven and Larry, and we're talking Swish.
Welcome everyone to another edition of Talking Swish. Larry here. Steven's not with me at this current time. We're actually not going to be doing a long intro. I just wanted to say a few words before we jump right into our regularly scheduled interview. This week we currently were planned to do a flashback to Khans of Tarkir Standard. It's going to be the standard format right after Theros and all those adjoining sets rotated out of the format. We lost the cards like Thoughtseize and Fleecemane Lion, but we still had the fetch lands, we had the Siege Rhinos and all that goodness attached to that. We're just going to go down a memory lane, starting from at the beginning of the rotation all the way up until the end to the next rotation when 4-Color Rally was the dominant deck at the very tail end of it. The interview ran quite long, and we did not want to do a 4 to 5 hour episode for you guys because the length that is going to be involved with doing that flashback episode is going to be pretty high. But regardless, we want to make sure we get you good programming each and every week for our listeners. So, in regards to that, we will be bringing you that episode in the near future. Next week, we are going to have an episode with Chase Masters. And we're going to go ahead and take a deep dive into the historic anthology announcement. Steven is quite excited because of Thraven Inspector. So we'll definitely be covering all that. I want to talk about Death Shadow in general and the anticipation that card brings to the arena format. We're also going to take a little insight on some of the prep that we're having. We both went 5-1 in the SCG event over the weekend. Unfortunately today we didn't perform as well. That's the nature of the beast. They were fun events regardless, and we are definitely looking forward to doing more in the near future. And I believe next weekend we are actually going to be planning to do some more. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get over to an interview with Adam Love. He is another teammate of ours on the Swish Gaming out of the west side of Michigan. And we cover a lot of things. We cover Adam's introduction to Magic, talking about going over to his neighbor and they just have a Rubbermaid tub filled with Magic cards, all the way to him experiencing a standard tournament without and playing a control deck without knowing the meta and having 30 minutes to dig deep into that. He also talks about Legacy and some of his perspectives on the current format and some of the announcements that Wizards and Hasbro has made recently. And of course, lastly, we're going to talk about some of his favorite decks and it's what he would consider his favorite format. And he might shock you when he tells you a format is his favorite that you might not even have heard of. But again, we want to thank you for listening. We are going to go ahead and jump into the interview with Adam Love. Alright, Talking Swish interview segment this week. We have fellow Swish Gaming member Adam Love on the cast. Adam, how are we doing today?
Doing alright, guys. How are you?
Pretty good. We both did some tournaments this weekend so far. Me and him, Steven, have both qualified for the Star City event tomorrow, so we're kind of hyped about that. Also got that sweet, sweet buy for it. So we're doing all right, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds very good.
Yeah, it's not that bad. We got the place of standard, not in paper, obviously. I think everybody at this point is used to that paper don't exist. That was a figment of our imagination. So, Adam, what you been doing lately? You handling the quarantine pretty well?
Yeah, actually. So, I'm an essential worker, so I've been working pretty much the entire time. Last job I was laid off for about 3 months during the summer of 2020, and been back to work. As far as Magic goes, I've been playing a lot of webcam paper Magic. I promise you, paper was not a myth.
I don't know. It seems so far ago at this point that I don't even know what. Do paper cards even still work? I don't know. Didn't they expire?
Oh no. I was shuffling up some cards not long ago.
Yeah, I think me and Steven, the last time we shoveled up some paper cards, we went over with Dewey and we did some, Cuban? Yeah, good old cube action.
Mm-hmm.
This quarantine
Yeah,
What was that? Sorry, go ahead.
I actually just finished a webcam alpha to alliances event, and now I'm queued up for another webcam event with some Michigan guys playing some 93-94.
Okay, old school.
Old school indeed.
So
Yeah.
is 93, 94 just cards that existed in 1993 and 1994?
Correct. So your ABUR, unlimited, yeah, and then revive the Dark, Legends, Antiquities, Chronicles, and depending on which rule set you use, Fallen Empires may or may not show up.
That sounds kind of cool.
And to be correct, because I've never actually played the format. I have buddies that are very big in old school. You have to use the exact printing from those sets?
I mean, it depends on the group of people you
Okay.
play with. So the official rules are, yes, they want you to play the old versions, but a lot of the groups that have popped up are, the way it was phrased to me is edition ambiguous. They're more interested in playing games of Magic with good company than they are what your cards look like.
Yeah, it makes sense.
No, that's understandable. Because I know they do old school tournaments at Grand Prix and stuff and side events. And
Yep.
I believe those ones they restrict you to it has to be those exact sets. Because they did an old school tournament, I believe they did it for an SCG con, and that's when somebody got caught cheating or whatever. And they had like power for prizes, so there was a lot of stuff going on about that because
Oh.
power is kind of expensive out here. So when the prize is power and somebody got caught cheating, there's an issue.
Yeah.
They just don't like that. I know power's what a Black Lotus is like $200 now. Is that what the price is? Am I off by a little bit?
Maybe just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, it's been a while. Paper magic is a figment of our imagination, as I mentioned. These tournaments you're doing, are they like conducted like just among friends? Is it kind of like an EDH group, or is it like through a store?
So a lot of them are done by private organizations. So a lot like you would hold an MTG Melee event.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it'll be put on by a particular group of people. With the old school community, the whole format is unsanctioned for the most part, and a lot of the events are put on by private groups of players who are just like, we want to play this format. We're going to put up some prizes. We're going to have a good time. So the one I played in most recently was put on by a group out of Nashville called Music City Old School. And then the one I'm queued up for now is being put on by a group here in Michigan called the Knights Templar.
Okay. Are they based out like West Grand Rapids, or are they not over in this side of the state?
They're kind of all over the place. The kind of core set of the guys are down like near the Kalamazoo area.
Okay. Like
and
Odyssey
then-
area?
Yeah, and then there's a few guys on the east side of the state and a couple guys up north and kind of scattered all over.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And then the good thing we have the internet. That has been like the saving grace of Magic. I think if we didn't have online Magic, like the game probably would be in dire like straits right now. But they're definitely doing fine. But yeah, let's talk about Magic and you a little bit. Like especially like we'll call it a Magic career. How'd you get into Magic?
So it would have been probably the late summer, early fall of about 97. This was about 6 years old, and 2 doors down from my grandparents' house that I grew up, spent a lot of my time at, I had this friend whose name was Chris. So we were hanging out one day, and he goes, "Hey, you want to play a game?" And I went, "Sure." And he pulls out this like giant like Rubbermaid moving tote, and it's seriously just like a pile of Magic cards. I've never seen a Magic card before, never played the game, but it's just this giant Rubbermaid moving tote full of Magic cards. And so we sat down that night, and his dad taught us to play, and he was just like, anything in that tote, like, you guys can deck build out of and play the game. So we started, I learned to play Magic out of this, like, Rubbermaid moving tote of, like, Tempest-era cards. So there's always a special place in my heart for Flame Tongue Kavu for obvious reasons.
Right. We all have a special place in our heart for some of the first cards we touched. Or used,
So-
I guess.
Yeah, so that was the start of it. Just like learn to play with friends, just hanging out as kids. And then I got out for quite a few years until when I was in high school. Some friends of mine, I found out they played, so I bought back in. And then in college, I started to get a little more into it, started to go to pre-releases and regular weekly drafts at the store I would frequent. And then that turned into playing standard, which turned into playing modern. And then that turned into me playing basically every old format I can get my hands on cards for.
That makes sense. Standard at that time was called Type 2, or was this after that?
When I got into playing standard, we're talking, oh dear, Mirrodin Besieged.
Okay. It's around when I started too.
Okay. So it's after it was already called Standard at that point?
Yeah, this was
Okay.
already standard.
Yeah, because I know we talked to Nate last week, and he came in because he's older than dirt during when it was called Type 2 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Type 2, Type 1, Type 2. So I didn't play at that time because, I'm not as old as dirt. But yeah, so I wasn't sure. I don't actually know when they made the switch. Was Extended still a format during that time?
No, I think we lost extended before Besieged. Because I think we lost extended not long after first Mirrodin block.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that might be right.
I say that it sounds like about then because I know Affinity ruined everything for everyone forever.
Okay.
I never got to play any Extended. I never took part in it. I've only taken part in the luxurious format that is modern.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
The best format in Magic.
Oh boy, man,
That's not up for debate.
don't know if I'm sold on that one, Larry.
Mine's just facts. I know.
It's all right, Adam. I don't agree with it either.
It's okay to be wrong. It's science.
Science says that Larry is right all the time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a motto. I think more people need to obey by that.
Mm-hmm.
So Larry, can you spell the word science for me, please?
I prefer not to.
Oh my god.
I want to say there's a Z somewhere in there.
I see.
No, but we'll get past the fact that Modern's the greatest format of all time. What was your first biggest event that you've done? Like, first big event? And when I say big event, like, it could be like IQs, like if you've done any Grand Prix, Opens, something that's above the scale of F&M.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this when you reached out to me, and I can't remember which one came first because the two of them happened pretty close to each other. So it's either would have been part of a 1K series put on by a now out of business store here in Michigan, which was a legacy 1K series by BC Comics.
I was just thinking, right when you said that out of business, I was like, he's so about to say BC Comics.
But about the same time, another pretty prominent member of the Michigan Magic community, one James Bryant, invited me on a whim to a standard IQ at Game On.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story was this would have been like Ixalan, and I had not played standard in years. So he says, "Hey, you want to come to a tournament?" Like, I'm not really doing anything. What's the tournament? And he says, "Oh, it's standard." I'm like, "Jimmy, I don't own a standard deck." And he says, "It's fine. We got you covered." I'm like, "Jimmy, I don't know anything about the standard format." He's like, "There's a blue-white control deck. You'll figure it out."
He had you play Control?
So...
With no knowledge on the format?
No format knowledge. I got handed, what was the Approach of the Second Sun.
That was a fun deck.
That was.
And I went 3-3, having only a 45-minute drive from Big Rapids to Mount Pleasant to learn the cards in the deck and start studying the format.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice. Like, that's the good way to play Control decks right there.
get invited the morning of, spend 45 minutes learning your deck and the entire format. I'll take a 50% win rate when that's what we're up against.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I did that actually for states. Back when Grixis Control won the PT, back when we had like Torrential Gear Hulk and all that.
Yep.
And I remember I got a day out because it was my birthday, so I told my job, because I was working in a factory at the time. I was a team leader, and I was like, I'm just not coming in tomorrow. I've been working like 20 days straight. I'm going to just take a day. So I took a day. Some buddies was like, we're going for states out at BC Comics in Fenton. And I was like, ooh, Fen Deli? I'll go. I just wanted to go for the deli. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, give me a deck. So they gave me Grixis Control. And I remember I did the best out of our whole car, and I haven't played Magic in like a year.
That's nice.
So playing Control deck unknowingly, because I got destroyed by Blue White Flash in one round, realized it was a good matchup, and I just played like Donkey Poo, and I just ended up beating it 2 more times that day. It was a good time. So, but Control decks, they can be a complicated like task when you don't know the format. Do you remember any of your matchups that day?
Well, let's see. I remember round 1 I played against Red Green Pummeler, and we're talking I was running on maybe 6 hours of sleep. Had no intention on playing this event, so stayed up late, hung out with people, and no idea the matchup. So got crushed.
Would you say got pummeled?
Oh, yeah, there we
No
go.
pun intended, right?
Oh, pun absolutely intended. So then
Excuse me.
The next match would have been Teamer Energy. We lost that one, and then played a Blue-White Mirror, which I also lost. So I'm sitting 0-3 on the day, and I'm like, man, this feels bad. Then proceeded to win my way out, playing against Teamer Energy again, then Grixis Control, then the Sultai Energy deck.
Yep.
So,
yeah, good old energy standard.
Oh, that standard was awful.
To be fair, that's what all started the trend of standard bans. Like, that's what broke the fourth wall, I guess we'll call it, and then it's never been the same since. That was back when we banned Emrakul, Attune. It started like a trickle effect, and it was just miserable.
Steven, this game wasn't around for Jace the Mind Sculptor Stoneforge Mystic.
I know that I'm talking about because we went a long gap without standard bans. They really tried hard not to ban anything, but it got to the point that they were like, we don't have a choice. I get Jace and them, but that Jace ban was pretty like pathetic anyway, because it was like banned like in a very short time when it was like not going to be a thing anyway. I think they didn't pull the trigger soon enough.
Well, Jace got banned pretty early on, because Jace came out, and all of the Planeswalkers we had before that were so much weaker, like not even remotely close. And then Jace came out, and it like we all knew it was good, but nobody really knew how good. It was even worse because all of a sudden you inject into a standard format Brainstorm, and not only Brainstorm, but Brainstorm plus 5 fetch lands and 4 more shuffle effects with copies of Stoneforge Mystic, and 4 more copies with Squadron Hawk.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is true. There was a lot of shuffle effects in that deck.
Brainstorm was crazy in that.
So early on in the format, it wasn't too bad because the weapons package you had to fetch with Stoneforge was not spectacular. I to this day play the GP copies of Stoneforge Mystic because in the art it is very clear to me that she is holding a Sylvok life staff. And that was the thing was before Badger Skull, before we got the full set of the Mirrodin swords, besieged block swords. When you played your Stoneforge Mystic, one of the pieces of equipment you would always have as a part of the package was Sylvok Life Staff.
What's that one do?
Oh boy, how long has it been since I've read a Sylvok Life Staff? When creature gets +1/+0.
I think that's right. Yep.
When it dies, you gain 3 life.
Oh my god. Okay.
That's one
Yeah.
basic ass equipment right there. That seems like a limited card, but I guess in that
One
format.
drop. Yeah, 1-drop artifact. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever equipped creature is put into a graveyard, you gain 3 life. Equip 1.
It's
Okay.
not too bad when you have a bird carrying it.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then they gave us Batterskull.
Yeah.
Has that even got any play?
The which one there?
Oh, Batterskull.
Batterskull? Oh no, I'm sure no one has ever put a Batterskull in their deck. Ever.
Like, it's just so bad with Stoneforge because they're like counterproductive.
Terrible. What are you gonna do with this 5-mana artifact in your white deck? I'm sure
Right.
that there's no way that works out.
It's too expensive. Like, I'm not paying 5 for that card. Like,
Yeah,
there's no
I
way
mean-
to cheat it in.
Maybe if it cost 2 mana or something, then we could talk about it. But
It'd be reasonable then. Like, 2 mana that they can't counter. I would
Right,
actually
right.
really appreciate that. No, I didn't really play Standard at that time. I played Magic at that time, but I didn't like play in tournaments or stuff like that. Like, I think it was like shortly after that I would start going to some big events, and I would like go to events, sleep in the car at like a rest stop. I didn't really talk to anybody in the Magic community at the time, all that good stuff. And then I kept playing up until Born of the Gods, and I was out because I thought that and Theros was such a bad set that I didn't want to waste no more money on the game until Dragons came out. But
yeah,
no,
yeah, no, I had a similar situation too, where I came into Standard just after Jace ban, and so we're playing like the mono white, like aggressive Mirren's deck, and then I played up through Siege Rhino.
oh
so
man, that was a card that was good at one point.
Oh boy. I got so fed up with Thoughtseize Siege Rhino Standard that I just packed it in and started playing Modern there, like, on the spot.
I support this decision. You know, this decision actually is pretty good. You know, you got to leave a medium format for the greatest of all time. I get it. Like, at least you came to your senses.
Yeah. So we traded in all of our nice, fair blue standard cards, and we said, you know what sounds like a good idea? Glistener Elf.
Glistener Elf is a sweet card, though.
Yeah, I agree.
I love me some Glistener Elf. I've never actually played with Glistener Elf, but I've always thought the card was sweet.
Yeah. So I was playing Infect during the Pro ban, and I remember the day it happened. A bunch of the local players who were either interested in the deck or also played the deck, we all like started a group chat. Everybody's panicking, going, "What do we do? It's dead. It's dead." I'm like, "It's not dead."
Over the Pro ban? Yeah, because
Yeah,
that happened
everyone-
a couple years ago, right? I think it's been a couple years since that
It's
now.
been quite a while now. Yeah.
I think it's only been a couple years, right? Because I don't think it's been that long.
2 or
I
3.
want to say we're pushing 4 at this.
It might be.
To be fair, I just got a memory that Detroit LGP Eldrazi was 5 years ago, so time is an illusion now.
Yeah, did it
Yeah.
happen before GP Eldrazi?
I think it was after GP Eldrazi, wasn't it? I think it
forget.
was legal during Eldrazi.
We were after Eldrazi because Twin ban was before Eldrazi.
Yeah. I'm very curious if they didn't ban Twin, if Twin or Amulet Bloom could have fought the Eldrazi during that tournament.
They probably
Oh,
could.
Twin could 100%.
I think Bloom could have.
Oh, definitely.
That was the deck
Bloom
I
was
wanted
great.
banned the most. Like, I hated playing against that. Talk
The deck
about
was
misery.
ridiculous. Yeah.
I was building Bloom when they banned Bloom, and I went,
Get
I don't even
wrecked.
want to try to figure this out.
Get
And of
wrecked.
course, like, it ended up that deck didn't need Summer Bloom, that we could just play a deck without it.
Yeah.
They're like,
But-
instead of you're gonna have to wait one more turn. Poor us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I at the time I just didn't have the patience to try to figure it out. So I came off all my bloom cards and started playing Affinity,
Mm.
or started building Affinity. Yeah.
See,
Um,
it took me so long to realize what people were saying. Like, oh, I'm building this deck because whenever I want to play like a modern deck or a legacy deck, I'm the suicide one that's like, I guess I'm out of K, and I just go buy it. So I'm never like for the longest time I was like, what do people mean when they say they're building this? I never understood it because I thought when you want a new deck, you just went like add it to card and you just buy it. I didn't know like you could actually go like a process.
God, you're both making me so happy that I'm able to borrow my decks usually.
yeah, so I definitely have that luxury now, but at the time, so again, when all this was going on, I was working like 35 hours a week at like $9 an hour. And I was renting, and my wife was in a pretty similar pay boat, and I was like, there's no way I can just throw money into this. Fast forward 2 years, and then I just buy into Legacy. So I guess things change, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you didn't have that same position when you bought into Legacy.
no. When I bought into Legacy, we were playing at a local shop, and we started a place that allowed the use of 15 proxies.
Okay,
Um,
that's reasonable.
Yeah, so when I started playing, I had just come off of playing Modern Eldrazi and Taxes, and I went, I mean, I could just build Legacy Death and Taxes, right? Like, that deck can't be that hard. Oh boy, was I wrong.
To build or to play?
To play. Also,
Oh yeah.
it was also difficult to build at the time, but because this was before the Rashad and Port reprint.
Oh yeah. Because I wonder. Do you remember how much it was before the reprint? I want to say it was like 50, wasn't it?
$150.
Oh man, I'm underselling that card.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
$150 a copy.
Okay, so that made D&T a little expensive.
Yeah, so when I started, I was proxying 2 copies of Cavern of Souls, which at the time hadn't seen a reprint either, and those like I could afford, I just couldn't find.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed 4 copies of Rashad and Port. So I was proxying. Oh, yeah, it was just proxying ports and, caverns. So then, over time, eventually I found my caverns, and then, just sat there and played played FNM, played FNM, played FNM, and then eventually built up store credit and got to know the owner. And the owner's like, "Hey man, like you got a bunch of credit built up. Like, what are you waiting for?" And I'm like, honestly, he's a Rashad port. So he said to me, "Hey, like, let me look around." And I come back the next week, and he had lined up 4 copies of Rashad port for me.
Nice.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Those are the good
Yeah.
store owners right there. Is that store still around?
It is not.
Okay, because saying if it's what store was it?
Dave's Valet.
Okay. I've never been to like Dave Valley, but I remember hearing of it.
Yeah. Yep. So this was kind of the early days of Dave's Valet, and like the community there was really cool for quite a while. But yeah, so Dave lined up 4 copies of port for me, and then I that owned the deck, and I played Death and Taxes for quite a while, and we built up pretty cool legacy community, and then another Grand Rapids local started showing up, and I started losing to Goblin Charbelcher. Basically every week, like clockwork, I would get paired against him in like the second or third round, and auto lose because if they just make goblins on turn 1, you never beat it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Charbelcher
So
does Charbelcher things, right?
Yeah. So I kept losing to Charbelcher, which made me decide, hey, maybe we see what this whole Force of Will thing is all about. and so I built Stoneblade, and I played Stoneblade for quite a while. And then we had the rise of Deathrite Shaman and a check pile 4-color control deck.
Mm-hmm.
And any deck that can constantly play Kolaghan's Command versus your 2 toughness thing and deck full of artifacts was real bad.
Oh yeah, Kolaghan's Command. That's like an unsung hero right there. I love that card.
Yeah, Kolaghan's Command savaged me for like a good 6+ months.
Oh yeah, Kolaghan's Command against Death and Taxes seems miserable.
It was also bad against Stoneblade because
I'd imagine.
Your Prime Engine card has 2 toughness and finds artifact. Womp womp.
Just to clarify, Stoneblade is pretty much like the standard Call Blade with additions, or what's it?
Yeah, so you start with kind of the core of that deck. So you're playing 4 Stoneforge Mystic, 3 Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then Legacy kind of supercharges it because instead of your mana leaks and things of that nature, you get Force of Will. That card's very good.
I hear that rumor that Force Will gets played.
Yeah, and the other tool, one of the other big tools that we have access to that you didn't get in Standard is Umezawa's Jite.
Oh yeah.
Also very strong.
I know me some Jite. I play in the sideboard of Delver plenty of times.
There you go. So the other big one was when we got True Name Nemesis from Commander 13. That card wears weapons really well.
Yeah, that's the one that wore the Jites for me. I know me some True Name. Love me some True Name. Pyromancer tokens also are reasonable. Mm-hmm. No, I accept those.
It turns out we weren't worried about a Pyromancer when we were playing 3 copies of True Name and Stoneforge Mystic and Snapcaster Mage, and eventually a Batterskull just flops itself into play, and when all else fails, you just Jace the Mind Sculptor ultimate people. It's fun.
Yeah, it just had a lot of game. It didn't have one specific win solution that had so many different angles that it could attack you from, different plans. And those decks usually are successful, at least for time periods, because when you're not being one-dimensional, for example, let's say I'm playing Dredge, that's a pretty one-dimensional deck. We have one game plan for the most part that we're going to try to attack you with. And if you can find a way to interact with that game plan, it's going to be pretty hard for us to get that W. But in those kind of decks, it's kind of like Delver in a way, where you can actually have multiple game plans to be able to win. Like, there isn't one specific, all-in game plan, I need my graveyard to win. This is going to be I'm going to beat you with Jace, I'm going to beat you with Stoneforge putting Batterskulls and Jite's into play, gaining value. We have True Name, as you mentioned, which everybody knows True Name's great. By the way, mentioning a True Name, I was sick that they didn't put him in Modern Horizons 1. They need to fix that and put him in Modern Horizons 2, damn it. We need him. We need him in Modern.
Merfolk needs a 3-drop.
We need fish to be relevant.
Yeah, shout out to Team Swish compatriot Killian Patton, the master of the fish.
Well, that's debatable because I do know me some fish. I'll fight him about it.
Yeah,
that is his deck though.
Our boy in his tackle box.
He does love him some fish. There ain't no argument there. He did have a foiled out fish deck. Unfortunately, it does look like he's taking a departure from Magic because of the pandemic, which is understandable. A lot of people are because paper Magic isn't in the near future. But when he comes back, I definitely could see him owning the waters once again, as we could say. But yeah, let's talk about. I'm going to assume Legacy might be one of your favorite formats. What's your all-time favorite format?
So, my all-time favorite format is actually a format that nobody around here plays at all, and that's I'm a big fan of Canadian Highlander.
I have no clue what that is. Is that a form of EDH or something?
Not quite. So Canadian Highlander is a 100-card singleton format, but there's no generals or commanders. There's no ban list per se, other than the anti cards and stuff that's banned in Vintage. Instead, the way it works is when you build your deck, you get your 100 cards and you're allowed 10 points. And really broken cards from all throughout Magic are assigned different points. So, like, Demonic Tutor is something that's worth points. I think Demonic Tutor last check is worth, like, 4 points.
4 points, and you're only allowed 10 in your deck building?
Yeah, it turns out Demonic Tutor is pretty busted.
In your 100-card deck, I guess tutoring any card out of your deck can be pretty messed up.
Yep, especially when you're all one-ofs, so you find the one silver bullet answer that you have to the situation.
Yeah, I play EDH. I used to play EDH with friends. I know how tutors can be.
Yeah. The difference with Highlander is, on top of the singleton, no ban cards per se, it's a 1v1 competitive format with 20 life. So
Okay.
it is you versus your opponent, fight to the death. And because you're allowed to play like a lot of these busted old like vintage cards, these decks can get pretty aggressive and pretty crazy. Even though you're only allowed one, like you're playing like the greatest hits from Magic in whatever colors you decide to play.
Makes sense. No, that sounds interesting. I knew it was like something similar to EDH, like a 100-card deck, because I've heard people like references. I didn't know any of the deck building restrictions. Does it get any tournament support, or is it more of a casual format similar to how EDH is?
So there's been tournament support at some of the GPs around the country. The whole thing is actually kind of run. The format itself is run by a group of people out of Victoria, British Columbia, up in Canada.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and
Hence the name.
so right. So they have kind of, most of them are judges and things like that. So a lot of them have kind of talked to different tournament organizers and stuff like that. And you've seen like major events out in Seattle. There's been pretty large events at GPs alongside the main event and stuff like that. We don't really see any of that here in Michigan, unfortunately, but there's definitely been some traction for the format, and it's a lot of fun.
No, it sounds like a good time. Like I said, I've never messed with it. Like I've never really been like hardcore in the EDH either. I have played EDH, and that was more or less with friends that would lend me a deck here and there. It's a format that I'm actually looking. Like I got a few of the precons I just picked up not too long ago that I'm gonna start adapting, because I feel like that's the only paper Magic I'm ever gonna get for the near future, and I'm kind of like in the craving mode to start playing again.
Yeah, I can understand that. With Highlander, it's a little different than EDH, though, right? A lot of times I've heard the council members and stuff refer to it as cube constructed. So like, imagine you laid a vintage cube out on your bed, and somebody said, "Build a 100-card deck." That's pretty much what it is. You just lay a powered vintage cube out on a table.
Oh, power's legal?
Yeah, power is legal.
Are they
Black
worth
Lotus
points?
is like 7 points? Yeah.
Okay,
Power is
like they
points.
better be some points. If they're gonna put points on Demog Tutor, but Black Lotus, 0. We're fine with it. Go at it. No, that makes sense. Is there like a resource online that you can get all this information from?
Yeah, I was actually just pulling it up. So there is an official website kind of explaining what the format is, what is currently pointed or banned or whatever. And not only that, but they maintain a pretty active watch list of cards that they're like, hey, this isn't pointed yet, or isn't pointed as heavily as we might think it should be. So we're keeping an eye on it. And that is CanadianHighlander.wordpress.com. And that is the official format website that just lists everything. They have a link to a YouTube channel and a podcast and all sorts of stuff if people are interested in the format.
Okay. It's pretty much similar how EDH is set up, where it's somewhat of a fan-made format, I guess we can call it, and they have websites. They control the ban list. Wizards don't have any influence on it.
Correct.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. So is there a favorite format that you have for like the competitive Magic scene?
Yeah, so my favorite sanctioned format is Legacy, not close.
I didn't know if it would be Legacy or Vintage, because I think I've heard you talk about vintage up at the shop when we talked briefly.
Yeah, I do love some vintage, but Legacy is often a much more balanced format. If you are somebody that likes to attack with creatures, you can just attack with creatures, and that a lot of times will get you there. If you're somebody that wants to play some degenerate combo deck, like, that's totally doable. If you want to play a counterspell deck or, Chalice of the Void or whatever it is you're into, you can usually find a way to do it in Legacy.
Oh no, everything you just explained speaks modern to me as well. You could do all that in the greatest format of all time.
Ah, my man. But you can't, though.
Why can't you?
So, especially recently after the bans in Modern, combo has gotten a lot worse.
Hey, Neoform's still a deck.
Kind of?
What
Was
did
it
it
ever
lose?
really a deck?
Oh,
Spear Guide might have been good in that deck. What was it in that deck?
Was it playing that deck?
I think it was.
Was it? I don't even remember. I've just
it was.
been
sure.
naturally comboed with the Chancellor.
It definitely was, because when they were going off, they would go guide, Morphos, and then...
Oh, that's fair. That's
yeah.
fair. All right. That deck... Oh, Storm. Easily. Storm's still
Storm's
a deck.
gotta be good right now.
Storm's great
It's gotta
right
be
now.
fine, at least.
At least Caleb's crushing with it on the...
Yeah, of course he is. That's the metric. If he's winning with it, it must be good.
Counterspells are really good right now because Blue-White Control is a really good deck now. That's a sign of a healthy format, by the way. When Blue-White Control and Jund are playable, there's something going right.
I agree with you. I think that, this is definitely the best shape I think that Modern's been in a long time.
I'll agree there. Modern. And especially when Dredge is really good. That format must be good. I love any format that Dredge is, really good in.
Larry, let me tell you about some stuff like Lion's Eye Diamond and Bazaar of Baghdad.
Oh, in Vintage?
Or in Legacy, either or.
Oh, you ain't playing no Bazaar back then in Legacy?
No, that's what the Lion's Eye Diamond's for.
Oh, I was going to say, if you Bazaar in Legacy, I'm going to be raising my hand. I'll be like, all right, we need to get some confirmation over here. Did they have an update to the list?
Yeah, I hope we never see Bazaar in Legacy.
We're never seeing Bazaar in Legacy. I have played around with Proxy Vintage, with friends that were getting ready for tournament, and Bazaar and Dredge and Vintage. Now that's a good time. Oh
yeah, that's a whole mess.
That's just fun, balanced magic right there. That's how it was intended. We need more of that.
Steven, I think he has a different definition for the word balance than we do.
He does.
Oh. Yeah, mine's correct. But
his version of balance is, am I having fun?
Yeah.
Then it's balanced.
Have you ever played Dredge and had your opponent just look so disgusted at you? Especially your Tron opponent who's complains about how unfair your deck is to you. You don't know the joy you can gain out of that when your Tron player tilts off on you.
This might come as a surprise, but I have done exactly that.
Oh my god. I had somebody at one of the opens playing Scape Shift tell me how Cryptic Command was broken or something, and I was just like, give me a break.
Your 4-mana counterspell is too broken for this format.
I was just like, get out of here, man.
Oh man, I could tell you a series of Cryptic Command stories that might change your mind, but no, Cryptic Command is a very reasonable.
Yeah, there's no way you're gonna ever convince me that this 4-mana counterspell is broken. Mystic Sanctuary made it feel broken. I will tell you that. It sure the hell made it feel broken. Holy fuck! Oh no, I'm okay. Don't get wrong, the new art Mystic Sanctuaries look nice as fuck though. I would have really enjoyed. I didn't play any Sanctuary, but I had people play Sanctuary against me many times, trying to do the whole Cryptic Lock thing. But that's the great thing about Dredge is they can fight through.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm a little biased for Dredge, though. I don't care what format it is.
I'm not here to Cryptic Lock you with my Mystic Sanctuary. There's this magical card called Terminus that solves all my problems.
Terminus in Mystic Sanctuary is actually kind of nice. Is Mystic Sanctuary still legal in Legacy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know we just had a bunch of bans. One I predicted, which I was still hyped about, because I predicted that Dreadhorde Arcanist was going to get banned because I thought if they didn't touch Delver, they were silly.
And boom,
Well, I mean,
they
they
did.
did touch Delver by banning Oko.
Oh,
but-
they need to hit Blue-Red too, because Blue-Red was just going to dominate the format. Blue-Red was 100% going to dominate Legacy after the ban that they only banned Oko. Because Legacy was Delver, and then a few others. But mostly, if we looked at statistics of like top successful decks, it was either Team or Blue-Red Delver lists that were just like always there. And then you have a splash, somebody with Storm was like, hey, I'm here. Like, and then we'll see you again, Storm, in like a month.
Yeah, you had Blue-Red Delver, Team Rug Delver, then you had the Snoko piles, of which there was like 3 rotating flavors, and it kind of depended which one was good that week. And then a rotating combo deck between Omnitel, the Epic Storm, Doomsday, and the Karn Echoes deck, which I'm calling a combo deck because no fair deck ever plays Lion's Eye Diamond.
Yeah, you don't see many fair decks playing. Like, look at the decks that play. 2 of them is being Dredge and Storm, and I wouldn't call those fair decks by any stretch.
Not at all.
Dredge kind of is because that deck sucks in Legacy. I'm gonna be real. Like, I'm very biased for Dredge, but I think Dredge sucks in Legacy. I'm not
Dredge
impressed.
Very good at very specific times.
It's very good if you play against very bad opponents. That's how I see Dredge.
Dredge and Legacy can be really great if the meta is just like a bunch of people trying to mid-range each other to death, and you're like, that's cute. Turn 1, Cephalid Coliseum, Lion's Eye Diamond, Breakthrough. Yeah, that usually does the job.
It's fair.
Yep, that can do the job if you have those secrets. But every time I play Dredge, I'll be sitting there playing them. I go game 1, they force to will my Lion's Eye Diamond in the blind. Every time, Steven and me has done it on stream. It's been pretty freaking annoying. They go force to will your Lion's Eye Diamond, have no idea what we're on, and like, fuck this guy.
If you're playing against Storm, that's just so stupid.
Like, yeah, we just talked about how nothing fair ever plays Lion's Eye Diamond. Yeah. So you force to will the Lion's Eye Diamond when you can.
Really, I don't think that's usually right against Storm, is it?
Oh yeah. The Past in Flames and Infernal Tutor lines are like a really big deal.
Can't you just like hit the tutor?
Yeah, wouldn't you rather counter those?
So you can. The problem is that you then still leave them a pretty reasonable density of stuff, and the act of them discarding their hand is often good for them. Because they want to fuel Threshold for Cabal Ritual, they want to fuel their graveyard for Past in Flames.
But what if so they're going tutor, right? And they have to retain priority to crack that bad boy. So they crack it, and then you just force the tutor. And they have no hand. So let's say they don't have Past in Flames. Like, what are they doing?
Sure.
And they don't have much mana either.
Yeah, because you just did everything. They get the 3 floating mana, but what are they doing if the tutor's gone? That's just the argument that I have for against Storm. Against Dredge, it makes sense.
Yeah, against Dredge.
Against Dredge, like, I think you should counter the Lion's Eye Diamond 150% of the time. But I do feel like there is an argument to not countering it against Storm, and you want to deplete them of their resources out their hand by setting them up for a trap. Because I can tell you, I would expect a Storm player would actually be more willing to go all in on that play because you didn't counter the Lion's Eye Diamond.
Oh yeah, not to mention, I was gonna say against Karn Echoes, I don't think countering the LED is super impressive either.
Yeah,
they're probably actually like sneaky the best Lion's Eye Diamond deck in the format right now though, because it's not uncommon for them to just put an LED into play and then not sacrifice it because they're just tapping it with Urza, or they'll save it for the next turn when they want to wish for Lattice with Karn, and then they're just like, okay, untap the rest of my lands, activate Karn, hold priority, LED.
Well, Karn and Urza don't come until turn 4. We're talking about on like literal turn 1.
Yeah, so that doesn't work out when Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, all of these other cards also exist. It is not out of the realm of possibility to play a Karn or an Urza on turn 1.
I still think they should be countering the Urza or Karn.
I agree.
I think the way you're going to beat those decks is you need to deplete them of all their resources, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah,
Post-board, I guess they could play forces and stuff, so it'll be a little hard, but they could still, if that's the case, they're still going to do that regardless. So I think the best route is, like, you get them to go all in on that whole play that they want to do, whether it being Urza or Karn, because they're usually probably going to statistically only have one or the other, unless they have a really nuts hand.
Yeah, for them to play an Urza or a Karn on turn 1 and have an LED that they didn't crack, that's 5 cards.
Mm-hmm. So if I can get them to go all in on that, and then I counter their one threat, and they can have a Lion's Eye Diamond in play. If they don't have an Urza or Karn, what are they really doing to close the game out?
Echo. That's what they're doing.
Well,
They're
they
gonna
don't have
crack
enough
that.
mana. Well, I guess if they crack the LED on the following turn, sure.
No, they crack the LED on the spot. LED doesn't have to tap to sacrifice.
Sure.
So you
we always countered the Echo anyway. Like when we played against it, we never countered LED. We would just go after their Echoes and stuff. Like that's how we were successful when we were doing leagues and stuff. Mm-hmm. We didn't even have to ever counter like Karn or Urza because it just never came up. I remember they would go LED, do a bunch of BS, try to go into the Echoes out the graveyard, and we'd be like, no, like you just can't because we're not going to let you.
So to go back to our when is it correct to force the Lion's Eye Diamond, the things that you have to ask yourself are: has your opponent played a land? What does that land tell you? Mm-hmm. If you let LED resolve and they crack it, what are they discarding?
Mm-hmm. I can see that mindset. That mindset does make sense because it all comes down like, can I beat or what they're going to cast off this discard? Is it something I can interact with? And most of the time, you're going to be able to. And keep in mind also, if I'm doing legacy tournaments, whether it's an NRG tournament or stuff like that, I get a lot of information by knowing their lists. But outside of like Moto only events, I get all this information. Yeah. So at this point, I think it's actually all going to be close to always wrong to actually counter the LED because we have all this like public information to be able to know what our opponent possibly could be doing. I was like, oh, anything that he's doing, I could actually stop. I'm just going to go with that line instead. The Moto events, game 1 on the blind, I don't think I'm countering an LED because it just could be so many things, and most of the things I think I can interact with on whatever they're doing with the LED.
So, like I said, I think it depends, like I said, on if my opponent goes land LED, and I have to decide whether or not I want to counter this LED, the first question I'm asking myself is, what is that land and what does that mean?
Well, a good player is just going to play the LED and not play a land first, right?
Mm-hmm. Unless they're worried about day. Well, it depends. If they're on the play, they're definitely
worried about days. Then they'll obviously play around.
If we're talking about our opponents on the play, they're going to go LED before their land drop because there's no reason not to. Right. We don't have mental misstep, which we should, but that's a discussion for another time.
Jesus.
Unban mental misstep, you cowards.
Yeah, exactly. And unban counterspell or print counterspell, whatever we need to for modern. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. This all sounds great.
But no, just to wrap that what we're saying, I'm a perfect believer that I don't feel like you should counter the LED, and I think you need to counter the actual thing, and you need to deplete the resources because eventually they're going to just draw, and you're going to be back in the situation. All you are is down interaction now.
Yeah.
And it also comes based on your hand quality. If I have multiple interactions, I might consider countering the LED now because I know I have a way to counter the LED in addition to countering like their actual threat. But I still probably wouldn't counter the LED.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I think I'm even more likely to not counter the LED if I have more interactions.
As I'm saying it, the more I'm talking, I'm like, yeah, I still don't think I would because I want them to discard their hand. I want them because now I know my chances of winning just gain percentage points.
Yeah.
Like because they have nothing left.
Yeah.
Unless Passion Flames was uncounterable or Urza was uncounterable, then I would consider it. But the fact that I can interact with those, echoes, any of that, I'm not really too concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, echoing, like, just going 3 man to echo later in the game isn't the big thing. They need to have, like, Urza and stuff to be able to actually get the full value of that card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, echoes alone, just, I never found it being the way you're going to be successful with that deck. But regardless, we're going to play the decks differently. That's the great thing about Magic. What would you, Adam, consider your favorite deck of all time?
Oh boy. So I guess there are 2 answers to this question. My favorite deck that I've ever played, personally, was during the check pile era of Legacy. I started playing Miracles with a main deck Keranos God of Storms. And I loved that list to pieces. And I remember once after Teferi Hero got printed, I was playing a Miracles Mirror, and I have a counterbalance in play, and my opponent casts their Teferi, and I blind flip my Keranos to counterbalance, and they conceded on the spot. So
That's funny.
it was great.
I like Keranos a lot.
Yeah. So that's my favorite deck I've ever played. I think that my favorite deck that has ever been there was a point in time in Legacy where the kind of premier control deck or Blue X deck at the time was Stoneblade. But Stoneblade players felt like they needed a little extra edge at the time, so some of them started splashing red and playing a Splinter Twin package. So your opponent is like playing the super fair Stoneforge Mystic for Batterskull game, and then all of a sudden you tap out and they're like, Exarch? Twin? Kill you? And you just died out of nowhere to your Stoneblade opponent.
That sounds like a good time right there.
Yeah. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I know we all have our favorite decks, and those decks do seem like a good time. I've never messed with them myself, personally. I never actually played with Counterbalance because I've never done any of that good stuff. I have seen people have a good time until Top got banned, and I'm not saying the card ain't playable now. I'm just saying people had way more fun when we had since I was dividing Top. What would you? What was that? Go ahead.
Sorry, it's almost more fun now, actually, because now you have to work so much harder to make your counterbalance work for you. So, like, the times when you're like, well, I didn't want any of this, so I shuffled my Ponder, and I'm gonna cross my fingers, and then you blind flip counter their next spell, like.
Oh, that's a high.
Yeah, that is peak Magic right there. Just blind flip counter their spell after you shuffle a Ponder. Like, I don't know that I've ever felt better.
Oh yeah, that's almost as good as when Jund Player's Thought sees you and you draw the same exact card off the top. Oh man, you want to talk about good feelings in Magic? Unless you're on the other end of that, then you just want to like jump off a bridge.
Yeah,
like it's the worst. So I know you said you're doing a lot of paper magics over Discord, whether it's being recording. What's your opinion on the current state of Magic?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack right now. There were a handful of us having a conversation the other day in a Legacy Discord for West Michigan. And we were all sitting down talking, and the bans across every format feel good. And that was a lot of people that I talked to feel like we got a big win there. Like Wizards finally started listening to the community.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yep.
Then not long after we got the announcements about Universes Beyond, and the announcement about Wizards becoming a full-fledged division of Hasbro, and there's a lot to unpack there. We went into it at length that night, but there are parts of me that are very hopeful for Magic going forward, and I feel like a lot of positive things can come from everything that's going on. But part of me is very scared.
Like, in what regards does the fear come from about the Hasbro announcement? Just curious. Like, I know you can't get into your full conversation because it's probably in great length, but just like some key points that you could think of off the top of your head.
So, I mean, as somebody who used to work at a game store, part of the fear is this announcement of more direct-to-consumer product. And there's a lot of fear for multiple reasons there, actually, not just as a former game store employee, right? Like, it sucks that they're cutting out game stores. What also sucks is that there's going to be even more product that never has to pass through standard. So we're more likely to see something dumb and busted that shouldn't have been printed that's going to, like, ruin old formats for a period of time. Because of fire design, right? They want to push the envelope, they want to create these big flashy cards, and like that comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And them skipping over LGSs, like, that's awful.
Yeah, I can agree that, like, given local game stores the short end of the stick, especially when they've been dealing with the COVID dilemma for the last year, is kind of like kicking a man while they're down, as they say. I'm very big about supporting your local game store.
Yeah.
I don't like buying boxes and stuff online. If I ever bought boxes for drafting or giveaways for our stream, it would be from local stores, obviously, because I feel like they're the ones that need the help more right now than TCGplayer.com. Well, I guess TCGplayer.com could actually be a local game store. That's not, or StarCityGames.com is a better comparison, or purchasing it from a Meijer or a Walmart. They don't sell boxes, but you know what I mean. If I wanted to buy booster packs or an EDH deck or something, I don't want to help out the corporation. I want to help out the local game store that probably has not had a good year, even though that's debatable, because I know some stores are actually having a better year right now, from what I've talked to them. So it's all, but overall, stores haven't been doing as well because they haven't been open. They didn't get to do pre-releases all year, which a lot of stores, that was a big money ticket for them.
Yeah.
And now that they're not going to be able to get some of these products because it's going to go straight to consumer or whatever, that is kicking them. And so I can agree there. The format thing. When I say the format thing, did they announce like any that there's going to be more sets that are directly to Modern? I know Modern Horizons 2 is coming out this year, but was there any other announcements regarding that, or is this all speculation?
No, so as part of the Universes Beyond announcement, we got an announcement that there will be a Lord of the Rings set that will not be standard legal. So with it not being standard legal, that would lead me to believe it will be something like Conspiracy or Battle Bond.
Oh, so it's going to be a legacy-only sets for most part.
Legacy, vintage, stuff like that, yeah.
So they're pretty much like Commander sets, or it's only going to be allowed in Legacy and Vintage.
Yep. So, and then the other one was a set of Warhammer 40k Commander deck, which, same thing. So I mean, there's a chance they could go to Modern.
I wouldn't put money on that. I think they're going to stick to how it's always been, where it's going to be Legacy and Vintage playable, unless it's like specifically in Modern Horizons. Now, with that being said, I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. I actually don't think it's a bad thing. The reason, I don't think their creative team, who the testing teams, should ever focus on anything but standard and limited for any portion. I think that's where they can just handle by banning things if need be. If the format's going to be bad for a month or so, that's fine. They can address it. I do think you just give it a chance. If it ends up being busted, oh well. I don't think it should stop them from like expanding out into the world, and trying to. I don't think they should need to be focused on like bringing these cards specifically for standard because they already have their hands full needing to do like designs for actual sets.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the ban list should be have more intention for is being able to open up the door for these opportunities because it is going to be sweet to have a little crossover because it might actually draw more more eyes on the product as well. Like who knows, people that were playing like our big Warhammer like players are like there's Warhammer and Magic now, let me go give it a shot. You never know, even if it's only 2 players, that's 2 more players than they had previously, and they're still gonna have their player base at the end of the day with additional players. So business wise, it makes sense. But
yeah, so I have a couple of things on that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things on that. I love the idea of drawing in new players. And if by printing a Lord of the Rings set, right, we bring a bunch of Lord of the Rings fans to Magic, I absolutely agree. That's definitely a positive. What I don't necessarily agree with is that Wizards shouldn't be looking at other formats, right? The whole point of Magic is that it was a card game that you could collect and own cards for your lifetime and play forever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ignore Modern and Legacy and Vintage and Commander, and you print cards that break those formats repetitively, people lose confidence. And there's a lot of talk about things shaking confidence, and it usually revolves around the reserve list. We can touch that later if you really want to.
Yeah, the reserve list is a whole show worthy.
Yeah. So, but what's important is that the people that Wizards should be listening to are not the people that are, day trading reserve list cards. Their confidence shouldn't matter. The confidence that matters is the people that are constantly following your new product releases and playing your game. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this is a game. These are game pieces. And you have to think about the people that are invested in this game, not just financially, but their time, their passion. And when you constantly beat up on old formats because you made a mistake, right? Oh, well, Oka was supposed to have 2 negatives and we accidentally gave him 2 pluses. Oh, we didn't realize how completely busted Underworld Breach was with Lion's Eye Diamond and Brain Freeze. Oh, well, maybe Renin 6 being able to recur Wasteland over and over and over again and recur a fetch land when that's not good was not a great idea. Like, it beats down on people. Mm-hmm. The Legacy community has seen a huge, exodus of players over the last, 18 plus months as the format's health has suffered because of fire design. And on top of that, then we enter the pandemic where everyone is playing online. And when you have a solely digital metagame, it solves itself a lot faster. Yeah. So the top decks thin out very quickly. It's why we saw everybody gravitate towards Ruk Delver, towards Snoko, towards Blue-Red Delver, and then whatever the combo flavor of that week was, because there were thousands of people playing thousands of hours of Magic to run the numbers and crunch the data from.
And then when you take into account posting on Twitter and stuff too.
Yep, we're not even counting the social media aspect. Yeah. Social media has increased the speed even more because I'm on Magic Twitter. You'd be amazed how quickly things are moving. It's like the whole revolving door when you're going into a business. It just keeps moving over and over. Sometimes it stops for standard, but the rest of the format seems like they just keep moving. Yeah. For example, that Blue-Red Giants deck in Modern was hyped for a week, and there was this deck is sweet. That deck don't exist now. We moved on, and now we're all talking about, Jund and Blue-White Control are really good right now. And then who knows what next week's going to show. And that's just one format in general. Look how Standard's been. Standard has been like moving every week. Like the last couple weeks, Aggro's dominating. This week, it's like Aggro's not even really representing at all. It's like we moved past it. It's insane. It's like the format feels solved, but it's not solved. It's like you get like, okay, the format's solved. We have Soul Type. We have these aggro decks. All right, and then Croaky's like, I'm just gonna play Naya Squirrels. It's cool. I'm just gonna change up the format again. And then there's like, okay, now we need to go back into this door. We need to figure out what we're doing.
Which is good. That's how Standard should usually be. It's what
and
you want.
Now talk about Standard. I want to like touch on what you said. I'm not going to agree. They should never test any of the Eternal formats when they come out with new sets. That should never be a concern. The reason being, Legacy Modern, the ticket price may look expensive, but the most expensive format in Magic is Standard. Bar none. They need to focus on Standard and limited in their testing. There's so much time, and I'd rather have a healthy Standard format than a healthy Modern, Legacy, Vintage format, because we can just ban things in those formats if we need be. And then when we're talking about the Warhammer and Lord of the Rings, like the cards that you mentioned, those are Standard sets. Those went through Standard. Unfortunately, that was a power creep. No argument there. We can go all day on how Throne shouldn't exist.
So Renin 6 was Modern Horizons.
Yes.
So we've seen the same thing with True Name Nemesis out of Commander, Leovold Emissary of Trest out of Conspiracy, Council's Judgment out of the first Conspiracy was a hot topic when it first came out. You get a lot of these cards. I mean, Baleful Strix came from a Commander deck. Shardless Agent was from a Commander deck.
The only cards, there's only 2 cards on there that you really listed that I really would consider like super busted that would be like ban worthy. And now Renin 6, I have no argument. Renin 6 is quite a good card. I have no argument. Modern Horizons was very, very powerful. That is the one set I wanted them to I don't think they did enough testing in Modern alone. Like, and the problem with that, I think that set was rushed. I really think that set was rushed. And they didn't put the time in. And it's understandable because there's not enough time to get actual testing into this when you have all these sets. Yeah. It's unrealistic because somebody's going to get hurt. And I'm actually okay that Modern them got hurt, because I'm not okay the fact that Standard was hurt at the same time, because I'm really convinced that Standard and all the formats got hurt because they couldn't put their full focus where it needed to be because of Modern Horizons. I do think I don't agree that Modern Horizons was a good idea. Mm-hmm. But no, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Multiple points yet again. One, I agree that it's bad that Standard was bad at the same time. That's why I think it's important that Wizards does also pay attention to the older formats. And I'll admit that, well, no, I won't admit. Part of my second point is that if they don't have the time and the staff to test all facets of the game, they're a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah, hire more workers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, hire more people. Why is there a revolving door policy, so it seems, in R&D and the Future League? Like, what happened with Tom Ross? Like, that's one of the premier players who has ever graced the game, and all of a sudden, like, he's working for Wizards, helping them design sets and test cards, and now he's gone.
Michael Majors as well is one that just recently started entering the Magic playing community again because he's no longer with them.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Like,
but then there's some that's still there that just haven't left. Yeah. Like that one girl that was the grinder. What's her name?
Martha Datora.
Datora, yeah, that's her name. Like, she was a hell of a Magic player, and then she's been with them forever now. Like,
JD Parents, I think, is on the design team.
JD's with them now.
And if you look at a lot of your early guys, right? If you look at Aaron Forsythe and Randy Bueller, and all of these guys came up from being grinders. And that's the thing, is that, like, we had to deal with some busted stuff when this was all going on, right? Like, Randy Bueller, like, was on the pro circuit playing, like, Necro back in the day. Mm. And like, subsequently, like, Randy worked on a lot of very powerful Magic sets. But there was always some place to go when something went wrong, right?
Yeah.
When standard was bad, they were also maintaining very carefully, your sometimes extended. That format was a mess in and of itself, but they were always keeping an eye on vintage, and they were constantly balancing their time between the formats so that, hey, we made a mistake with this format. We don't want to ban anything if we don't have to. So, like, maybe go check out, Type 1. Or maybe go check out Modern. Or the problem is now that they just want to put products to print. And because they're so focused on putting products to print, it's almost like they don't care about the consequences, right? If the whole community suffers all at once, if Standard sucks and Modern sucks and Legacy sucks and Vintage is okay, like, that's good enough for them because, like, they're just going to print something else that's going to rock the boat in 3 months or whatever. And they could fix this by hiring more people, dividing into teams that are carefully paying attention to these things. And now, again, you're never going to catch everything. Yep. I get that. I don't expect them to.
No, that's unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah, but if we had a testing team, right, when a new set comes out, like, okay, so Strixhaven is on the horizon, right? So if they had a test team for Strixhaven dedicated to Standard, and a test team for Strixhaven dedicated to Modern, and a test team dedicated to Legacy and Vintage. Because yes, I understand that Wizards doesn't care as much about those formats as everything else. I get it. I'm old money at this point. It's fine. So
I think the Legacy Vintage one is probably the most unrealistic one. I can see a reasonable argument for Modern, but I don't see any realistic scenario where they would have a testing team for Legacy and Vintage, because, and I think that is the blame. You got to blame the reserve list for that. And don't get me wrong, Wizards ain't off the hook for I'm not trying to say they have nothing to do with the reserve list, but I think the reserve list is why that's going to always be an unrealistic expectation, because there's no money to be made for Wizards off of Legacy and Vintage.
Well, that's not true at all, though, right? That's a part of the whole situation is that, Legacy and Vintage players are your lifelongs, your diehards. We're the ones that are willing to sink thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into a game. We are your dedicated crowd. We're the ones that are showing up, rain, sleet, snow, or hail to our F&M event to play. We're the ones shelling out thousands of dollars for a deck, and then, you print a new art of Scalding Tarn, or you give us a slightly better version of Snapcaster Mage. And there we are, shelling out money again. Yeah. And it's not like none of us buy sealed product.
Because that was going to be my next question is if we could find some way to know, because if you're buying individual cards, that's not helping Wizards. They don't have any effect. The secondary market they could care less about. That's why they're never going to be concerned about this card's expensive. They're like, we don't care. It don't matter because they're not getting any money off of it at that point. That's go ahead.
They definitely do care, right? Because that's why we have reprint sets, right? Sure. They want to cash in. But that's the thing, right? Is that, and mind you, my evidence is anecdotal, right? There's never going to be a finite way to track this.
True.
But the majority of Legacy and Vintage players I know, when a cool new set comes out, a lot of us will buy in. Because, one, a lot of us like really powerful limited. So, when Eternal Masters came out, everybody in my friend group was eating up boxes. Just as fast as we could get our hands on them. Mm-hmm. Because, one, the limited environment was awesome. It was incredible. And not only was the limited environment good, but, you walked away from it with cards that were either super iconic or super powerful. And that
set did have some powerful cards. I thought it was a lackluster set personally, but that's all subjective.
Sure.
I don't think you can actually do an Eternal Masters with how everything's set up. But again, that's a discussion for another time.
Sure. So, but that's the beauty of it, right? Is that when these sets come out, there are definitely interest from, again, the old money players like me who are playing old reserve list adjacent formats. Like, I've been playing a lot of old school, and anybody who knows that community really well knows that there's a lot of anti-competitive Magic sentiment that floats around there. And I say competitive Magic, I don't mean like playing a competitive game. I mean like sanctioned Magic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't want anything to do with standard or modern or whatever. But I can tell you that in multiple of the Discords that I'm in for old school, we have been exploding over Time Spiral Remastered. People that haven't bought sealed product in years are like, I kind of want to buy a box.
That
I kinda
whole
wanna buy it.
remastered BS they're calling it. I don't know why they just didn't call it a master set. They said this is Time
That's it.
Spiral Remastered. Get out of here.
Well, I mean, but in a sense, it is. Like, if you ever played Tempest Remastered on when that was available to draft on Magic Online, like Tempest Remastered took all of Tempest block, smashed it into a single set, and then you could draft it. And this is the same thing for Time Spiral block. You
I
take
know.
all of Time.
I love the Primeval tie-ins and everything you used to get through Time Spiral. You know, Arid Besa was a really good card in the Time Spiral block. Old Draven Inspector was a really good one drop.
So ignore your time shifted cards, because there was the same thing in time, like in actual Time Spiral, right? Like in actual Time Spiral, you had time shifted cards from old sets where we got Arena and Lord of Atlantis and stuff like that. But like Sangrophage is just like an actual Time Spiral card.
Mm-hmm.
Like this existed, and now like I've been looking at it a lot, and like there's a really cool like blue-white blink deck in Time Spiral Limited. There's all of this like aggressive green stuff going on. You can play Slivers because that was a big part of Time Spiral, and like this is really cool. As somebody who loved OG Time Spiral, we'll quick caveat: super mad that we didn't get Future Sight frame back on Dryad Arbor. You cowards, but I get it. But like, there's tons of stuff that is just like, again, these are just Time Spiral reprints.
No, the set's cool. I'm not arguing to say the set is bad. Don't get me wrong, my Dredge deck, I'm about to get me some foreign cards of those new arts and then get them whiteboarded.
Sure. So, but like, this is really, like, it's really cool, and this is going to be a great limited for people who either didn't get to experience Time Spiral Limited the first time, or for people who want to experience it again, but don't want to shell out thousands of dollars on the secondary market to play a Time Spiral block draft. Like,
the only issue is only
Spiral
one print run they announced, which
Sure.
is very unfortunate because I feel like this would actually be a very cool set to like draft because there's so many cool cards in the set, especially with the like alternate arts, because they're not just rares and mythics. There's some really cool uncommons. Hell, Draven Inspector and Prize Amalgam, for example, are two non-rare and mythics that I would love to get the alternate arts for.
Is Amalgam not a rare in this set?
What, Amalgam? Oh, maybe Amalgam is. I kept thinking he was uncommon because he just doesn't feel like a rare creature to me.
I know. Yeah.
But that's a rare. Draven Inspector is like the one example I made.
Yes.
So Lava Spike, like we
There
get a
we go.
reprint of
That's a good. Yep.
Liliana's Triumph, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Monastery.
Oh, Grey
Swift
Merchant's
Spear.
in the set? I haven't looked at the full spoiler.
Yeah.
I love me some Gary.
That's sick.
Stinkweed him? How did you forget your boy
No,
Stinkweed?
Stinkweed's in the set, but I was just thinking like the ones that I like some of the first cards I looked at.
Yeah, like
because it
the
was
set-
fresh.
But like even ignoring, not that I think that you should ignore the time shifted cards because I think it's super cool, but even if we were to ignore the time shifted cards, right? Like this is going to be a cool limited format, especially for people who weren't around for Time Spiral the first time around.
Yeah, no,
Like
I think the set's a cool concept. I just wish it wasn't one print run. I just don't like that because now the cards, the secondary market's going to be a pain in the ass.
I mean, but Eternal Masters was supposedly a single print run set too, and we saw how that panned out.
Well, they had to because the set was so bad.
Oh, the set was great.
Set was so bad. It was the worst Master sets behind Iconic.
To go back to our point earlier too, I just wanted to mention that I think it's also really important that Wizards is quick to the ban hammer when things are really ridiculous.
Yeah, I do think they'd be like not pulling the trigger quick
Right.
enough.
But they fixed it with Valky, or at least with the rule change with the Cascade. That helped a lot.
That was probably the quickest. I think the quickest span out of a standard card in the Eternal format is to Bolt's Trickery.
Yep.
That card didn't even get to see the light of day. It's so
and they
funny.
did it early in Pioneer too. They were very quick. To
if they
ban
do
things.
ban lists like they just did, and they do the consistent, if they say we don't care how many cards we got to ban to make it healthy. Now I do think they failed with the historic ban personally. We can get into that late another time, but I do think that they did good, but they didn't do good enough for historic. Leaving Cat combo in the deck is just ridiculous in my opinion.
Muxus
There's no
could
reason.
go, maybe.
Yeah, Muxus and Cat should have been banned. Like it makes no sense. Like their whole reasoning for it. They're like Demonic Tutor is too broken for historic, but Muxus is legal.
Yeah, and
Get
honestly,
outta here.
Coco might get there too.
Coco I think's fine because if it's been fine in Modern in them for so long, I do think that Coco will be fine.
It depends what it depends what they want historic to be. Like if
They
right
said
now
they
it feels
wanted
like,
it to be Arena's legacy.
It's fair.
That is exactly what they said. That is going to be Arena's version of Legacy because Pioneer's going to be... Pioneer Masters is coming this year.
Yeah.
Keep in mind. So when Pioneer's Masters come, that is the legacy of Arena. They're never putting the Modern in all those other formats. They already said that. Even though Black Lotus has been on Arena. Don't forget that.
It has.
Yeah.
But, all jokes aside, that's the legacy of Arena, which is awesome. I am also... We're talking about legacy. We're talking about the stuff, just to backtrack a little bit before the time spiral. After this pandemic, I personally think legacy should be an online format.
Like online only?
For big tournaments, I think legacy should be online. Because you get more players that way. You get a bigger player base because you don't have to buy the cards.
So that's actually... That's statistically untrue. Well, okay. So
I was like, is it statistically untrue? Because everybody's playing from home and not having to purchase the cards because they could pay $20 a month or whatever it is to just get any deck they want.
Well, I guess where I was going with that is that there's always been this talk around legacy and large paper events like it doesn't work out, like it's not a real thing. But if you look at the history of legacy GPs, they're always packed.
Yeah, they are.
No, I'm not arguing that GPs don't have an attendance. I'm not saying that, but I do think it's more realistic that they're going to have overall, if they stuck in was we're going to just do all legacy online, their revenue, and I'm looking at this as a business aspect, not as because I enjoyed legacy paper tournaments. This ain't because I don't enjoy them. I went to Niagara back in 2019 for the legacy GP, and I had a blast. I had a good time playing the format. I went X1 in my first legacy PTQ. It was a great time. Again, I reference this a lot because me and Steven do these events. I went X1 in a PTQ and didn't make top 8, by the way. You gotta love how good the PTQs at GPs are. Just saying.
So
You gotta love a tournament. You go X1 and you get nothing nothing you aim for. But besides that, the revenue they gain off of doing the tournaments online, which keep in mind, the overhead's gone, and they're just gonna get a ton of players. Hell, NRG had their best turnouts. Some of their best turnouts was the legacy tournaments. So
Yeah.
and that screams because mana traders and card hoarder are great not programs but services that provide you the access. This $3,000-$4,000 deck in paper, I can just play here for $20 this month. Sign me up. Hell, Card Hoarder does a thing for NRG where you can pay them $10 and rent any deck you want.
Yeah, no, and I see what you're saying, and I think that offering online play for Legacy is great. I don't think it should be exclusively online. What I will say is that one thing the pandemic has proven is that if you give people the opportunity to play old formats with the cost barrier removed, if you look at the numbers from the God account events on Magic Online, people will flood these formats if you let them.
I have no idea why Magic Online don't have their own version of Mana Traders at this point. I don't understand that. You know, they could make so much money because they know nobody's buying packs on Magic Online. They can give up on that dream. That dream is gone. But you know, if they could honestly take the business away from managers and card hoarder really easily if they could come up with a model to fight them. And what they're like, because managers and card hoarder are making a lot of money right now, probably more than they've ever made because of the pandemic, obviously. Like, because those God events where you would buy the token and you would get access to every card, except for the Walking Dead cards for some reason. I never understood that why you didn't get access to those cards. But I think it might have been a glitch in the system because they were pretty new at the time. But like those events, like people loved them. I was reading online, people were like, "Yo, $25, I get to play some standard leagues and stuff that I would never do because I have all the cards now." Because you know, standard cards are incredibly expensive. So I do think that is the one plus. But like I said, the whole like tournaments being in paper compared to online, that's subjective, of course. That's just my opinion on it. I'm not saying that's fact. It isn't like the Modern's the greatest format that I mentioned earlier.
I mean, you didn't see them running God account events for Modern, my dude.
Oh, they don't need to. Modern cards are cheap.
That's not true.
The best deck in Modern on Moto is $150. Just saying. You don't need any other deck. There's only one deck to ever play in Modern. If you're not playing that deck, you probably aren't good. It's just the nature of the game.
So we're back to Dredge. I see.
Oh yeah, it's the best deck in Modern's history. It would destroy Eldrazi right now. If we did a no ban list Modern, I'd destroy everyone with Dredge.
Boy howdy, let me tell you about some sweet, sweet miracles, my dude. Because this has been a thing that has occurred. They, if you remember SCG Con, they ran a no ban list Modern event at SCG. Yeah, at SCG Con.
Yeah, I remember that Eldrazi event.
Yeah, you remember how Miracles showed up with Divining Top and like floored people? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah, it was medium.
Remember, that is not the deck that won that tournament, is it?
I don't think it won that tournament.
I think Eldrazi won the tournament.
Yeah, because I remember that SCG Con.
Didn't, God, what's his name? The kid, younger kid, glasses.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
He won, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't he the one who won
so.
it? Or no, Annalise. Annalise won it, I think.
Oh, was it Annalise?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure she was on Eldrazi.
Yeah, cause I know there's a lot of Eldrazi in that tournament.
And I
was very shocked.
think the finals wasn't Eldrazi Mirror, if I remember.
Yeah. I'm not saying Miracles wasn't had any representation there.
No, it was, so you had Aiden Breyer.
Yes,
you were right,
Aiden Breyer, and I think he did
Aiden
quite
Breyer
well
was
in that
the
event.
first, and BBD took second playing Miracles.
Okay.
Okay.
But what was first place?
Eldrazi, Aiden Breyer.
Of course, because Miracles sucks.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Because if you look at the field is like flooded with Eldrazi and depths. But like,
oh yeah, I forgot depths was big in that tournament too.
So your top 8 are Eldrazi, Miracles, Depths, Eldrazi, Depths, White Eldrazi, Eldrazi Post, Eldrazi.
Bro, people would have made so fun of me because I would expect Eldrazi. There might be like Ivug pass. I would play like, what is that card? Mimic, pass. I'd be like, all right, turn 1, Forest, Boggle, go.
Sure.
That ain't the format for that, I don't think.
And then your Miracles opponent shows you a Terminus and you get real sad.
Terminus ain't good against Boggles.
Terminus is incredible against Boggles.
I have protection.
Nice enchantments. You don't have protection for me putting your creatures on the bottom of your library, my man.
We played Gaddock Teague.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see.
Sometimes I play Gaddock Teague in the main. That is fucking hilarious. Like, you want to talk about some mad people?
Yeah.
I do
That
that.
might be a good format to do it in.
You ain't lying. I don't know. What does it really do against Eldrazi, though?
Nothing.
You have to see if you can make a bigger idiot faster than they.
Yeah,
are.
that's the
Spoiler
plan
alert.
against Eldrazi.
I'll next level my opponent. I'll play Boggles with mainboard bridges.
Ooh.
You ain't winning, but neither am I.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, man. That's a.
How many cards you got in your deck? All right, that's the game plan.
So you're saying we can never cast a Core Spirit Dancer? I understand.
Oh yeah, the Core Spirit Dancer ain't in the deck no more. Like
Yeah.
that card don't exist. But no, wrap this up a little bit. You just joined. Did you just join the team back in their last introduction to players?
Oh boy, so it would have been.
Was it back in? Did you come in last
I was
January?
Second wave, yeah. So it would have been just pre-pandemic. I think it.
Yeah,
was...
we came together. Me, you, and Steven, James Johnson. All of us came into the group at the same time.
Yeah, Jamie. Yeah. So right about that whole process. This is when the team was still kind of like fleshing out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been when I showed up.
Yeah, because we came around the same time. I thought we did for sure. Yeah, we were all supposed to do that NRG team event.
Yeah, that was that was exactly why I was conscripted, was because they were getting ready for the NRG event and they needed legacy players because the team was basically a bunch of modern players.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted legacy players, and that was why they reached out to me and Nate.
Yep. I remember I was only going to play Legacy if I absolutely had to. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I knew who James Bryant was when you talked about him, because before I was on Swish, I was on a team with him.
Yeah.
So I already knew James beforehand.
Yeah, James used to be part of my testing team and everything like that when I was...
Good old Mana Rocks days right there.
Oh, no, this was before Mana Rocks was...
Yeah, I was just talking about how I knew him. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, James is good people.
Yeah.
I've actually never really seen him play Magic, because he's out... Every tournament we were going to do when we were on the team, he had kids. He had his kids or whatnot, so he didn't get to go.
Gotcha.
That's life. You know, that's...
James is a pretty good player. I played quite a few events with Jimmy. One of my best Jimmy stories ever, in fact, is so we're playing it in F&M, and we're kind of using it to tune our decks and stuff just before we go to play a 1K. So Jimmy's on Eldrazi, and I'm playing Miracles, and we're post-board. And so Jimmy's on the play, and he goes, turn 1, Ancient Tomb, tap, cast Sorcerer's Spyglass. I look at my hand, a little frustrated. I'm like, yeah, it resolves. And I put my hand on the table. In my hand, I have Island, Flooded Strand, Swords to Plowshares, Brainstorm, back to basic. So Jimmy sits here for a minute, looks at my hand, and goes, name Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yikes.
What?
So, yeah. So I then proceed to spend my next couple of turns playing lands. He jams a Thought Knot Seer. I, in response, brainstorm my Plow back to the top of my library. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember what he took. But then I just end up plowing his Thought Knot Seer and casting a back to basic.
Yep.
I'm so disgusted by the whole not
out of the
Flood
entire
Strand.
Does not name Flooded Strand. I'm staring at two of them. I cannot do anything about this Spyglass. Names Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Jimmy,
now,
what?
The backstory is that the previous game, we had set ourselves up in a position where we're grinding, and Terminus wipes away some dudes and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we just get to a game state where I'm just Jace plussing him into oblivion, and I have a full grip of cards. Land go, land Jace plus go, land Jace plus go. Just stare at him with a full grip of cards, and I Jace ultimated him for the win. So I think he was a little on tilt.
You tarnished.
Yeah,
we
just kind of ruined it for him. So just like slams this Spyglass, stares at two Flooded Strands and a back to basics, names Jace anyway, gets back to basics out of the game.
That's so brutal. Why you gotta do that, man, like that?
I am the worst, Larry. This is a known commodity.
Like you broke his heart.
Yeah, we crushed him. Just completely destroyed him.
Like
Jimmy, if you're listening to this, I still love you. It's fine.
I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, Jimmy knows I do.
No, he should definitely took the Fledge strand.
Oh, 100% should have taken the Blood Strand. We joke about it to this day, but yeah.
Briefly, tell us what your predictions for the future of Magic.
Yeah, so I guess some big things kind of Wizards already said that we're going to see more direct to consumer product. So because of that, I think that we're going to see a huge increase in Secret Lair and Mythic Edition style product. We're going to see Wizards pushing more premium product at us. And not only just the premium product, but all this tertiary product with Universes Beyond. So because of that, I do think that we're going to see a lot of the fire design shift outside of standard sets and shift to this supplemental product, this like fancy premium stuff. So because of that, I think that we're going to see a pretty low power standard environment coming up.
Yeah, after Throne and War of the Spark, I think they were like, we know where we fucked up. We need to stop doing this BS.
So maybe it's not quite as bad as Ixalan standard, but I definitely think we're going to scale back. So part of this too, with kind of the way that everything was shaken out with the pandemic, and the way that people have been playing Magic, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Pioneer die as the format, and Wizards to kind of give up on it, because they're really cultivating a new atmosphere. So you have Magic Online, and a good chunk of your Magic Online players are playing the tried and true format. They're playing Standard, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Commander. And you've got some Pauper players. I think that Magic Online is probably the one place where Pauper is still alive and well, even if the community hates each other. So I think that then you have Arena, where you have Standard in all the various variations thereof, and you have Brawl. And even though we're getting Pioneer Masters, the big spotlight there is really on Historic.
Now, with that being, not to cut you off, I don't honestly see Pioneer going away, because they have had some, like, when that's a really good paper format, because they do get a lot of attendance at these events, and they do Pioneer quite often for main events, whether it being Star City or who knows who's going to be running Grand Prix when this all said and done, since Channel Fireball's out.
Right? Yeah, like they tried to, right? The problem is that schedule never actually panned out. There were a bunch of them scheduled and they got canceled because
for what?
For Pioneer main events.
Well, they already had Pioneer main events before this. The PT was Pioneer.
So we had like one.
No, we had way more than one main event, because our last two big events before the pandemic, right before, was Pioneer, because we were just an indie for an open for Pioneer. Like, right, it was literally like a couple weeks before the pandemic started.
Yeah. So you had the open. I guess I'm talking the Wizards specific circuit, right? Like, because you could make the same argument that like Legacy is dead because Wizards cut it, but then Star City Games held Legacy events for years after the fact. After Wizards basically relegated us to once a year. But I don't think that we're gonna see a great long-term trend for Pioneer, because I think that you've got everything going on in Magic Online, and while Pioneer exists there, I wouldn't say it's one of the top dogs, even close.
Yeah, it's probably. I do think it's going to gain popularity on Arena. I think that's a format that needs to be on Arena for it to succeed.
Sure.
I think Pioneer reminds me of how Standard is on a Moto, where it'll have bare minimum attendance. It's not going to ever like surpass. And the main reason a lot of big tournaments that are held online are mainly not Pioneer, so there's no reason for people to be playing them, which is understandable. And I do think that changes when it gets on Arena, because people are going to start scheduling more Melee Pioneer events.
I mean, sure, but would you rather play that or historic?
Right now, I'd probably play Pioneer. I heard Pioneer's actually really good right now. I just don't really want to play it because I don't have any reason to play it. That's the main reason I don't play it. If I had any like reason, like for example, I do. There's historic and standard tournaments I do every week, so I'm on arena most of the time right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think, like I said, when it gets on to arena, it's going to change, and I think it's going to boom back up because even the GPs, because they had a couple GPs before the pandemic, between the start of Pioneer and the pandemic, they had at least 2 or 3 GPs, and they all were fine. Like there was the GP in Phoenix the same time for the PT, and it had a great attendance. There was at least one more before that, but I don't remember where it was.
Yeah, I guess I just don't know that I see a great long-term health for that format, even on Arena, because again, it has to compete with standard and historic, and I think that the vast majority of your player base, when given all 3 options in a client where it's effectively free, costs them $0, like you're either going to choose standard because you're grinding standard, or you're going to choose the format with a deeper card pool.
But I don't know if that's even necessarily true. So, like, one argument that could be made is like, okay, somebody ain't gonna want to buy into Pioneer when they already have historic, but you're gonna have to buy these Pioneer cards if you think you're gonna play historic anyway. So you're obviously gonna already own the cards, and there's gonna be legit tournaments for Pioneer because trust and believe the arena opens and stuff are gonna rotate to Pioneer as well. There's no way it's not going to. And then Melee's going to have a lot of support for Pioneer because you're going to see Pioneer tournaments from the Star City circuit, from what was a Mythic Society circuit. Who knows if this new circuit that just popped up today is going to do it, the Red Bull circuit when they decide to come back and do things. Channel Fireball, their little Clash event they do every month for their premium their pro members. They're going to rotate it to Pioneer as well. They're going to definitely have way more tournaments that they're going to have on Arena because Arena has a bigger player base than Moto does. And that's going to obviously be the case because people have the illusion that Arena's cheaper. For some wild reason, they think Arena is a cheaper program than Moto.
People don't see the money.
Yeah, they don't. It's like people that have the mindset that Standard is cheaper than Legacy and Modern, and I laugh at them every time they tell me that. And I was like, you are out your mind if you think Standard is the cheaper format.
So to go back to my predictions for you, so an increase in all this premium product, Mythic Edition, Secret Players, this kind of stuff, this will help shift away the fire design pressure on Standard, so we're going to see some lower power Standard stuff. I think that we're going to see, like I said, I don't think that it looks good for Pioneer, but I could be very wrong. That's just my personal observation.
Yeah, it's your opinion. You have the right to your... Like, I was asking what your predictions are. I'll just give it my intake on it.
So another one is that with all of the fire design, the way that it's been moving, I think that we will continue to see cards that function well with Lion's Eye Diamond.
Okay.
Because it turns out that every time Wizards starts looking at, hey, what cool new thing can we... It usually involves something that gets busted with Lion's Eye Diamond. Echo, Breach, Ox. Like, Wizards is going to break Lion's Eye Diamond again. We're calling it now.
That's fair.
Speaking of things I think that Wizards is going to break, and this goes back to the conversation about all their announcements, it wouldn't surprise me to see the reserve list get broken in the next 3 years. With Wizards now being a full division of Hasbro, this means that has absorbed them in their entirety. The way that I understand this, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. I just have friends who have studied law, and I've had lengthy conversations with them, which may or may not hold ground. None of us is a Supreme Court justice either. So, the way that I understand the situation is that now that Wizards is owned wholly and completely and a division of Hasbro, not a subsidiary, Hasbro is not beholden to any of Wizards' former promises. This includes the reserve list. So, if you want to print a bunch of swanky premium product with a bunch of crazy foils and stuff like that, eventually you're going to start eyeballing Dual Lands and Black Lotus. Like, it's just kind of natural. It's a giant cash cow that has been ignored for decades. We always used to joke, a bunch of us Legacy and Vintage players, that like eventually when Wizards breaks the reserve list, they'll do it with like From the Vault Power 9 Plus. And you just get like a From the Vault foil set of like Power 9 cards plus Bazaar of Baghdad plus Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale plus Mishra's Workshop. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if we see like a Secret Lair product or something like that in the next 3 years. Now, as part of all of this, with again Fire design and kind of what I think is generally accepted as a pretty abysmal mismanagement of the competitive Magic scene, I do think that we're going to see the popularity of community-driven formats continue to go up. This includes, again, things like Commander, but also things like Old School, Highlander, Middle School, all this kind of stuff where Wizards isn't really involved.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what they do. I know that once Legacy started to get pretty rough there before all the bans, there was a big group of people pushing for a couple of different variant versions of Legacy that the community could run and operate. One of them was pre-War of the Spark Legacy, where we just kind of got to ignore the most recent stuff. And then another group of people was really pushing for pre-Innistrad Legacy. So no Miracles, no Liliana of the Veil, kind of ignore some of all of that batch of what people consider mistakes.
No, that's a really cool take to have on the format.
Yeah, and so like there's been a lot, especially with the pandemic and people being shut up at home, like people have really started evaluating like what is the kind of Magic I like to play, and we've seen a lot of growth in these community-driven formats. Like I said, I originally bought into Old School at GP Detroit years ago, but it never really, or just shortly after, but I never really played because I didn't really have a group of people that I played with. But when the pandemic hit and I was at home for 3 months laid off, I started talking to a bunch of my friends, and a buddy of mine said, hey, join this Discord. And so I did, and that led me to another Discord. And so since, in the last year, I've played 3 or 4 webcam old school or old school adjacent events, getting ready to play another one, and that doesn't count the countless like random pickup games that I've played with people from these Discords. And we've seen huge growth. Like all of these Discords, people are flocking in constantly. People want a sense of community again. They want to feel like their voice and their feelings about the format and the health of it and the gameplay, they want to feel like it matters. And I think that we're going to see a lot of these community-driven formats either continue to pop up or continue to grow over the next couple of years.
No, that's definitely something that I think all that's reasonable. The last thing I want to ask you, because we've been on for quite some time and I don't want to like take up any more of your time, but the question I ask at the end of every interview is, if you had to make a Mount Rushmore of Magic cards, what would you say were the 4 Magic cards that deserve to be on that?
Okay, a Mount Rushmore of Magic cards. Step 1, Ancestral Recall.
Okay.
Black Lotus.
Okay.
Then Fireball.
You said Fireball?
Fireball.
Okay.
Like OG X and a red, let's deal some damage.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the original X red spell. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah, Fireball. And then Kismet.
What was that?
Kismet.
What does that do?
Kismet. It is a white enchantment. Let me get you the text real quick. Please, internet? Hello.
Got
So
that
Kismet
dial-up.
is, yeah, sometimes. Kismet is an enchantment originally printed in Legends. 3 and a white. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped.
Just a nice little enchantment to slow your opponent down. So those,
Just a 4-mana prison piece. It's fine.
yeah. So those are the 4 that you would lock in. So those are
Yeah,
just set
and-
on top of the. So they're gonna
Yep.
be carving out a little outline of all those cards right on that mountain.
Yeah, Ancestral Recall, Black Lotus, Fireball, Kismet.
All right. The first 2, I was like, oh, these are nice cards. Then you said Fireball, and I'm like, wow, one of these aren't like the first 2.
Yeah, so the thing is, right, that those 4 cards represent, like, some of the key elements of Magic, right?
Right.
So Ancestral Recall is the power of card advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Black Lotus is the power of acceleration. Fireball gets to do double duty as reach and a sweeper, and then Kismet for prison, balancing the game to your advantage.
Right. Okay. No, it all makes sense. I just wanted to get make a little rib on because the first 2 were so powerful, and then the next one's not the most overly powerful, but they do have big importance in the game of Magic. No argument.
Yeah.
But Adam,
And then
what?
and then we get to a 4-mana enchantment that nobody knows what it does. It's great.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. I know one day me and Steven's going to reveal our top 4. I don't think anybody will be ready for my top 4 when that time comes. Steven's, we know Thraven Spectre's going to be on his. It's
Prized
whatever.
Amalgam, Creeping Chill, Golgari, Grave Troll.
We're starting a petition online to unban looting.
Faithless
We
Looting.
need that card unbanned. But Adam, we do want to thank you for jumping on the show with us. I know we've been talking about it for a while. It's nice that we finally were able to link up and find a time that fit for both of our schedules.
Absolutely, guys. It was a pleasure to be here. And so unban Faithless Looting, caveat, your deck must contain Young Pyromancer.
Hey, I love me some Young Pyromancer. I said we can unban looting and ban Creeping Chill. I'll meet people in the middle. I'm not unreasonable. I think that's
Gross.
a fair trade-off.
Gross.
But no, it's been great having you on. We will catch you later.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks again.
Not a
Yep,
problem. You
thanks for
take
being
care. And then for those listening at home, we will catch you guys next week for another edition of Talking Swish.
Thanks for listening.